You wake up in a cheap hotel room. Your head is pounding. You have no memory of the last 12 hours. The last thing you remember is having a drink at the bar downstairs. But something feels horribly wrong. Your body feels disconnected. Your thoughts are fragmented. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice that isn't yours keeps whispering things you don't understand. This wasn't a bad dream. This actually happened to thousands of ordinary American citizens. Between 1953 and 1973, the CIA ran one of the darkest, most illegal programs in American history, MKUltra. They secretly dosed people with LSD, locked them in sensory deprivation chambers, blasted their brains with electroshock, and tried to erase their minds and rebuild them as perfect, controllable agents. They turned their own citizens into human guinea pigs. No consent, no warning, no mercy. And the most terrifying part? When the program was finally exposed, the CIA destroyed almost all the evidence, and almost nobody went to jail. Are you brave enough to open the classified files with me? In the normal world, your mind is the most private thing you own. Your thoughts, your memories, your free will, they belong to you. The government is supposed to protect your rights, not experiment on your brain. But in MKUltra, everything was reversed. The CIA treated the human mind like a broken computer that needed to be hacked, wiped clean, and reprogrammed. They believed they could turn an ordinary person into a Manchurian candidate, a sleeper agent who could be triggered to kill on command and then forget everything. It was like installing a virus into the most complex supercomputer on Earth, your brain, and hoping it would obey new commands without crashing. That was the fatal glitch, the horrifying weird in the system. A democratic government secretly declaring war on the minds of its own people in the name of national security. The man who started it all was CIA Director Allen Dulles. He was terrified that the Soviet Union and China had already perfected mind control. So he gave the green light to create America's own version, only bigger, darker, and completely illegal. And the experiments didn't stay in secret labs. They moved into universities, hospitals, prisons, and even onto the streets of American cities. But how exactly did they try to break the human mind? That's where the real nightmare begins. But how exactly did they try to break the human mind? That's where the real nightmare begins. Chapter 1. The Birth of MKUltra. In 1953, the CIA launched Project MKUltra under the direction of chemist Sidney Gottlieb. Their official goal was to develop mind control techniques that could be used against America's enemies during the Cold War. They were obsessed with the idea that the communists had already mastered brainwashing. So the CIA decided they needed to catch up no matter the cost. Chapter 2. The Tools of Terror. The program used every disturbing method you can imagine. They secretly spiked people's drinks with LSD, sometimes in parties, sometimes in brothels, sometimes just on random citizens. They locked people in total sensory deprivation chambers for days or even weeks. They administered massive doses of electroshock therapy to wipe memories. They used hypnosis, isolation, and extreme psychological torture. The goal was simple and terrifying. Find a way to destroy a person's old personality and install a new one that the CIA could control. It was like taking a hard drive, smashing it with a hammer, then trying to reinstall a completely new operating system while the computer was still running. Chapter 3. The Scale of the Horror. MKUltra wasn't small. It involved 80 different institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. Over 150 sub-projects were created. They experimented on prisoners, mental patients, drug addicts, and even their own CIA employees. One of the most infamous operations was called Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA set up brothels in San Francisco and New York. They paid prostitutes to lure men back to the rooms, spike their drinks with LSD, and then watch through two-way mirrors as the men lost their minds. They filmed everything. They took notes. They studied how LSD broke down a person's sense of reality. But that's not the most shocking part. They also experimented on their own people. Some CIA agents were given LSD without their knowledge just to see what would happen. One scientist, Frank Olson, was secretly dosed and later fell or was pushed to his death from a hotel window. His family wasn't told the truth for over 20 years. But behind all these cold experiments, there were real human beings whose lives were completely destroyed. Let's meet one of the most heartbreaking victims of MKUltra. Her name was Candy Jones. She was a famous American fashion model in the 1940s and 50s. Beautiful, successful, and admired by millions. In the early 1960s, she was approached by the CIA and recruited for what she believed was a simple courier job. Instead, she became one of their secret mind control subjects. Over many months, she was subjected to hypnosis, massive doses of LSD, and brutal psychological programming. The CIA allegedly tried to create a split personality inside her, turning her into a programmed courier who could carry secret messages without even knowing it. Years later, Candy began having terrifying blackouts. She would wake up in strange places with no memory of how she got there. She started hearing voices and experiencing violent headaches. Her once glamorous life slowly fell apart. When she finally went public with her story in the 1970s, many people dismissed her as crazy. But declassified documents later proved that the CIA had indeed been experimenting with exactly the kind of techniques she described. Another horrifying case involved ordinary citizens in San Francisco who were unknowingly dosed with LSD at parties. One man later described waking up convinced he was inside a nightmare he couldn't escape. He said his own hands looked like they belonged to someone else. Hundreds, possibly thousands of people had their minds fractured by MKUltra, many without ever knowing why their lives suddenly collapsed. In 1973, as the Watergate scandal erupted, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of almost all MKUltra files. Most of the evidence was burned. What little survived only came to light because of a clerical error, a few boxes of documents that were accidentally overlooked. When the surviving files were finally released in the 1970s, the American public was horrified. Congressional hearings exposed the program, but almost no one was ever punished. Sidney Gottlieb and other key figures retired comfortably. MKUltra remains one of the clearest examples of what happens when power is left unchecked. The human mind is not a toy. It is not a weapon to be tested on citizens in secret. When a government starts treating its own people as laboratory rats, when it secretly wages war on the minds of innocent men and women, it stops being a protector and becomes something far more dangerous. This story is a chilling warning that still echoes today. Never underestimate how far those in power will go in the name of national security. And never assume your own mind is completely safe from manipulation. If this story made your skin crawl, if it made you question what else has been done in the shadows, then hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey into the darkest, strangest, and most disturbing corners of science and history. Thank you for walking through this darkness with me. Stay curious. Stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next video.